Good morning, everyone. It's Pastor Mary, and this is an extra video. You'll still get our regular videos. I just wanted to take a minute and talk with you about Lent, because Lent begins on Wednesday, on Ash Wednesday. And with COVID, things are going to be a little different this year. You know, our church won't be offering or imbuing ashes this year. Other churches have found creative ways to do that. We decided that we just were going to do Lent a little differently. And I wanted to take a few moments and talk with you about Lent. So for those of you who are maybe new to the United Methodist Church, I know we've got some visitors who are still trying to determine who we are and what we're about. United Methodism is kind of in the middle of the road when it comes to Lent practices. So you have some denominations and traditions, such as, you know, the Orthodox churches, and the Orthodox has its own family of churches, and then you have the Catholic Church and the Anglican Episcopal Church, who Lent is a very strict season in which the community participates in very specific fasts, very specific traditions and ways of doing worship. And then you have your more evangelical traditions, such as, you know, your Pentecostal churches, your non-denom churches, your Baptist churches, that Lent isn't something that gets practiced at all. And then you have a whole family of churches, such as the United Methodist Church, that kind of live in the middle. So we observe Lent, we practice Lent, but how we do that is in many ways a combination of there being congregational practices, such as Ash Wednesday and Holy Week, for instance, and then there's individual practices where people choose for themselves how they will observe the season of the church. And some people choose to fast. Some people choose to give something up, such as like social media has become a very popular thing for people to give up during Lent. Some people take on an extra practice, and some people don't do anything. And we, as a denomination, acknowledge that everybody practices piety in a different way. And the whole point of Lent for us is that whatever you choose to do, whether you choose to fast, whether you choose to give something up, whether you choose to add something, whether you choose to do nothing, the whole point of that is to bring yourself closer to God. We practice Lent not because it's biblical, but then again, none of the church seasons are technically biblical. All of those are part of church tradition that came later, but because the seasons in the church help us as individuals and as a community to gather around a united effort in order to be the body of Christ in a certain time during that certain season in a particular way. And the point of Lent is to help us acknowledge our own sin, help us not avoid the consequences of that sin, and recognize that it is because of that sin that Christ came. And so we are walking along a path during Lent, preparing us for the great celebration of Easter, to help us reconnect with God in preparation of this celebration. And so during Lent, you pause and you ask yourself, how do I practice my faith in such a way that acknowledges the sin that I carry, and not in a self-deprecating way, but just to be honest with ourselves. What is the sin that I carry? What do I need to work on? And how do I get closer to God so that I can be more united, more grateful, more faithful to the sacrifice that was made on my behalf by Christ? That's the point of Lent. And this year, our theme for Lent is going to be faithfulness. We're going to talk about the different ways that we can be faithful to God on Sunday mornings in our sermons. And so I want that to be at the forefront of the season for you. What is faithfulness? What is faithfulness in my individual relationship with God? What is faithfulness in my communal relationship, in my place within the body of the church, within the body of Christ? And what is faithfulness to the neighbors, the strangers, the people around me? what does faithfulness look like? So this year we will be adding a tradition as a church where every morning, except for Sunday, because if we add an extra video on Sunday, it will throw off the algorithm of how Sunday morning worship works. So Sunday morning worship will be our only video on Sunday, but for Monday through Saturday, we're going to add a devotion. If you're on Facebook at 11, if you're on YouTube at 1 o'clock, that will be offered every day. We'll keep our Wednesday night, or sometimes Thursday night, but our midweek night and our Saturday night videos, and we'll continue with Sunday morning worship. If you choose to fast, I encourage you not to pick something for, self-help or self-betterment, which is the way we tend to go. We try to pick something that's going to be really hard, right? Or something that will help us on our diet, or, those kinds of things. But instead, pick something that will help you connect to God. That's the point of the fast. If you're going to give something up like social media or television or internet or whatever, same thing. Pick something that will bring you closer to God. This isn't our self-help season. So many people use it like that. This isn't our opportunity to restart our New Year's resolutions. This is a time to connect to God. So choose something that will be meaningful, that will connect you to God, and that will help you in this season to recognize God's grace for you. And in all things, the point of Lent is not to punish ourselves, right? It's not to pity ourselves. It's not to self-deprecate, but it is to connect us to the value of God's grace. So this season, remember God's grace. Remember God's forgiveness, because that's what Lent is leading us toward, God's grace and God's forgiveness. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will see you on Tuesday at 11 o'clock.